Hello, everyone. Bernie Floresca from Career Services, welcoming you to the June edition of the Resume Group Workshop. And I highlight the word group because it's not just Bernie coaching. I'm leading the discussion, but anybody based on their observations and what they're learning is free to share and give comments to whomever we are highlighting. So I have Rohin, I have Sohaib, Sadatu, and Rosemary. At some point, I'm going to ask, the reason it's called a workshop, because it's not like a lecture, so to speak, where we're just going over ideas. This is actually getting into the details of the resumes that you have. So I am going to share my screen and go into the LinkedIn group because this is where most of the resources are for you guys. So once you're in the LinkedIn group, the hard way to do it is to type in Illinois Tech Career Services in the search bar. Tech Career Services. Notice that there are two. One says it's a group and the other is a person. You want to get to the group. If you're not a member, you're going to click join. If you are a member, you click view posts and you get into this. So quiz question for you guys. How do I find the index?
You go to one of the posts and it's mentioned in the comment.
Good. I love it that you said that, Rohin, because right now, Julie just put out a podcast. So we're highlighting the podcast right now because it's fresh. So if you notice, it's any post, like Rohin said, even in the pinned posts, it's a comment out there. But let me just, well, this one Jason just put on, so you weren't able to catch it and put. But, hi, Kajal.
एक मिनट. Yeah, hi Bernie.
Welcome. We have a full house today. Kajol, since you've been with me with some other workshops, you may want to consider being today's hot seat. You'll be on the hot seat today if you want. Otherwise, it looks like I have some other volunteers. So under the index group, I'm going to do hashtag resume. And let me pick one. Let me pick the latest one. Case study 7 better. There's an old version and there's a new version. So there are some underlying principles when looking at a resume, and I want to talk about it because it is going to be the basis of today's conversation. So volunteer for check mark number 1 and 2. Who wants to give their thoughts on what check number 1 and check number 2 mean? Feel free to jump in and unmute yourself. It says job search is an art. Take any advice, including Bernie's advice today, with a grain of salt. And the second one says it's your resume or your LinkedIn or your cover letter or your interview is your call. So who wants to tell me what they got out of those two statements?
I think you really have to personalize it for yourself because everyone's resume is different and there is no standard format to showcase your skills. I mean, there is a standard framework, but the way you put it forward to the hiring manager, you really have to tell your story in that one page, is what I feel.
Very good, Rohin. So to Rohin's point, everybody's different. There's advice that's out there. You want to use the advice that resonates with you so that everything is aligned, from your resume to your LinkedIn to the interview to the when you start getting into negotiation after getting the interview. These are all connected points, and thing starts with the resume. Thank you, Rohin. Anybody else have anything to add with the first 2 bullets? Anybody have anything to say about the 3rd bullet? Templates are guides, they're not rules.
Yeah, I think for the template, as I said, you really have to tailor the template to your experiences. And not everyone might have like 10 years of work experience that they want to showcase in their resume. You might just be fresh out of college looking for your first job. So yeah, the template will remain the same, but the content, the way you put it forward will differ from person to person.
Okay. I'm going to take that a step further, Rohin, to your point that everybody has different backgrounds. Somebody, all they have is education as a highlight. Some people have an internship. Some people, based on the job description, what they're trying to highlight to the hiring manager is their projects, because that's what relates to the job that they want. The template has a very specific format. There's a summary / objective, education, skills, and then experience, and then projects, and then extracurricular. How you arrange that is really based on you, the person who is writing the resume. So maybe I may not want education to be the first thing that they see. I may want them to see experience first, because I've had all this experience, and this is the experience that relates to the job description. Feel free to move the categories around in the resume, is what number 3 is saying, to Rohan's point. Questions about anything we've covered so far? Check number 4 is what most job seekers, not just students, most job seekers forget to address. It's confusing, kinda, because people think that because it's a document about myself, I just give all the information about me and good luck to the hiring manager to find what you need. That's pretty much not how it's said, but that's the attitude people take when they write their resume. It's very complete, it's very accurate, but they're not thinking of who's about to read it. So we'll cover that really shortly in the next check mark. So you want to be imagining yourself as a hiring manager to see if your resume is what would stand out to them based on what they said they wanted as qualifications for the person who was applying. Any reactions to either of the two? No reactions?
No.
Hiring managers, do they have a lot of time or little time?
Oh, they have 6 seconds.
They have 6 seconds, so very good. Remember when I said people put documents about themselves and they're very sure that it's very accurate and they give all the details. The purpose of the resume is for a hiring manager to take a look at it so that they get immediately in that 6 seconds that Rohan said, whether you are the person that they want to, number one, look further down in the resume, because you're kind of like doing some you're checking some of the boxes that they're looking for. So if they have very little time, it's connected to the very last check mark that we're talking about. To make the very busy hiring manager's job much, much easier, it's best to structure a resume to give the manager what? What are you reading? We want to give the manager, it's bolded, guys.
Little time.
No, it says you want to give the manager easy, fast access to relevant information. Easy, fast access to relevant information. And again, sooner versus later. Let me talk about sooner versus later. Let's say you're a person who has experience, or there's all sorts of nuances to people's background, such that it may not be obvious immediately, such that the hiring manager would have to look through the resume and find it. So the easiest solution to that is to create a summary that matches what they're looking for. And then you highlight everything that you want out there so that they could start reading, you catch their attention, and then they'll read some more into your resume. So I repeat, you want to give that manager easy, fast access to relevant information sooner versus later. Questions so far? No questions? So based on those underlying principles of a resume, who wants to raise their hand and let's get into it. Who wants to share the resume? Let's talk about it. We may not talk about the entire resume, but I'll control that. Usually for these sessions, we can cover 1 or 2 resumes. So we have 45 minutes so far.
Yeah. Bernie,
Rohan's gonna go?
Yeah, I think start with my resume if you can.
Okay, so before you show us your resume, Rohan, I'm sure the reason you're in this call is because you don't necessarily check all the boxes about the principles that we just talked about earlier. So before you flash your resume on the screen, give us an idea of what we're going to look at, and based on the information that we just talked about so far right now, what is it that you think you're going to change in the resume that you're about to show us?
I think the point about always think like the hiring manager, and to make the manager's job easier, to best structure a resume. I think these 2 points are what I want to focus on, and also just give me a minute. Yeah, basically giving them access to relevant information is the biggest one in
Awesome.
my resume. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for setting that up for us. So before Rowan shares this, if some of you guys have listened to the previous Zoom recordings, part of these sessions is a lot of describing of the tasks is usually what people do on the resume. They describe the task, and what they're not calling out is the results and accomplishments. So I'm going to be very dramatic and give you an example. Students normally say they describe a job and they say, I swept the floor fast. Fast is an attempt to give the hiring manager context of what they accomplished, but they didn't really get into it. They made a claim that they were fast, but how does the hiring manager know that they swept the floor fast? Versus they want to say, I led a team of 5 floor sweepers, introduce a process improvement that reduced the time for the job from 60 minutes to 5 minutes. Which one is better? I swept the floor fast or the latter?
I think the latter.
Why?
It quantifies your efforts.
It quantifies your efforts and gives the impact of what you did. Because a task is a task is a task. What separates one person from another is what they did with the task, which in essence is really the results and accomplishments that you called out. So what I want this group to be doing as Rohan shares his resume is to see the difference between describing the task versus calling out and giving context of the impact and his results. If he's not, you guys are going to observe me asking him questions to bring out what Rohan truly accomplished and what would be truly more important to the hiring manager. Any questions about the directions for the group? Sounds very clear. Rohan, the floor is yours.
Okay.
And thank you for volunteering, by the way.
Yeah, no problem. Sure. So do I share my screen now?
Yes, please, but it looks like this is, now you can. Perfect.
Yeah. So, yeah, okay, yeah. So, yeah, hi everyone. This is my resume. So, I want to know what can improve based on the templates that we just discussed.
Okay, keep it up there for a little bit. And then I want this team to give us some comments before I give comments. Based on what we've discussed so far, what did Rohan do well? And what could Rohan change to make this stand out even more? Comments from the group? Rosemary, Kajol, Sohaib?
Just now, as we discussed, like in his experience, we cannot see numbers. Like it is not the experience is not having any uh, like you can quantify it.
Okay.
Okay. So the first bullet says accessing and implement working capital requirements. That's a description, right? Monitoring levels of raw material in process stocks and finished goods monthly. So how many months did you do this for? You could say, well, they could read it. They could go April 2021 to May 2022. Remember what we said earlier? Who's reading this? It's the busy hiring manager. So you pretty much want to hand all the information to them versus making them deduce or calculate based on what they're seeing.
Okay.
Lead a team, that's pretty good because you led a team. How many people did you lead?
I led like 4 people.
Okay, so led a team of 4 is much, much more impactful than just say led a team.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
But he did pretty good where he said 9,000 assets. He was trying to quantify it and give some sort of reference for the person who was reading this. Part of the team for ESG to promote sustainable manufacturing process. So for something like bullet number 4, what was the impact of being part of that team in you promoting? Did you guys accomplish anything?
Yeah, so the objective was to publish the ESG report for the company.
Okay. Were you given a time limit?
Yes, 3 months.
3 months. Did you guys finish it on time or ahead of time?
I'd say on time.
Okay, so you could say delivered on schedule for what it was. Were there any extenuating circumstances that you did this such that your delivery of 3 months was a big deal?
Yeah, I think because the number of clients that we had to deal with,
How many?
and I'd say around I think 93 is the exact number, 93.
93 clients from
Yeah,
where? Is it just
93
within one
clients.
region?
No, it's all over the world.
All over the world. Do you guys notice my line of questioning? You guys understanding where I'm going with this? Because what Rowan had just saying, he was part of the team to promote sustainable manufacturing. And then he said, no, we were trying to publish something. No, it was within 3 months. And then no, it was actually to 93 clients all over the world. Do you think that gives better context about what Rowan really accomplished? That right there is key to majority of the work that you guys do with a resume. I want to hear questions from the group if that wasn't clear.
Yeah, so Bunny, so it was a lot of data in one sentence. So what will the hiring manager see? Will he see like, okay, he's worked with 93 clients from all over the world, or because all over the world again is very vague, or
Global
will he see like
means all over the world.
he's
Rohan,
yeah,
did you catch
he's
that?
worked with 93 clients? Is that what he's going to see? Is he going to see the is the manager going to see the collaborative effort that I've put into?
Well,
Or-
unless you tell them that it was collaborative.
Okay, so
See, I
So-
like your questions,
Yeah.
Rohan. But the thing with it is you and I are discussing, so you can ask this, the hiring manager can ask you that. The problem with the resume is what they're reading had better give you the big picture.
okay.
So I love your questions because your question should really be included in the resume. And then you said around the world, that can be shortened to the word global, 93 global clients. And actually that's part of the value that we at Career Services give to you guys, because we know how to word things, how to make it shorter, how to go direct to the point and call out the results. So it's going to be collaborative effort. The issue when you guys come to us with a resume that's like this, without me asking questions of Rohan right now, I have nothing to work with. I have nothing to make pretty because they're all descriptions. And we can make the descriptions pretty, but descriptions do not make you stand out.
Okay.
Questions? I love the
Hey, Benny.
examples. Yes.
Could you speak on impacts in the sense of, is there kind of like a framework you would have to guide you in terms of kind of like drawing out impact? So, you know, if you're explaining, for example, I'd use his one of his example, led a team of 4 to perform assets targeting for over 9,000 assets. So in terms of an impact, also they kind of like I'm trying to create a framework in the sense of this is what an impact would look when a hiring manager would look at a resume. Because I'm trying to draw that out on my resume, and yeah, kind of like, would you guide us, for example, on that?
Yes. So thank you for the question, Rosemary. And the guidance is actually the steps that I went through with Rohan right now. He would say something and I'm like, what about this? He'd say something and I'd be like, how many people did you lead? He'd say something and what was the purpose of this goal? These are things that you guys don't usually think of. But you notice that since we're all focusing on it and we're looking for the accomplishment, I'm hoping that you're catching my drift in the questions that I ask Rohan, or the questions that you should be asking yourself. So by the way, the process that we're doing right now can be done by you alone. So here's the way you would do it if you were alone, Rosemary. You would talk about the job, no holds barred, just dump everything about the job, write it down, write it all down. Once you wrote it down, you go on a second pass and come from the framework of just like this team is doing right now. Come from the place of what was the result and what was accomplished. So you read everything that you dumped, and then you say, okay, what was accomplished? Is that making sense, Rosemary?
Yeah, it makes sense in the sense of, for example, if there's one part you've talked about in terms of time, that could be something in terms of a framework you'd include, you'd have maybe a certain period of time, a certain in terms of quantity, for example, 9,000. Yeah, I kind of get now. I can kind of get the
Yes.
framework from what you just explained.
Yes, so remind me of two things. If I forget it, I want to show an article in the LinkedIn group to this point, but I want to shift this for a second to non-job, not like an internship or a full-time experience, because sometimes we have students who have no experience at all. And the only work that they've done is really work in the classroom or work on projects. So to give context to Rosemary's question is, how do you show the impact? Well, you were working on a project, Project X. The professor told you to do Project X in a certain way. When you went home, you found a better way to do it. You shared it with the professor. He loved it. He shared it with the class. Guess what the accomplishment was? You introduce a process improvement. Okay. So that's one way of impact. It's not a real job. It's work in the classroom, but I'm showing my impact even as a student. The professor told you to complete the assignment in 4 weeks. You did it in 3. You reduced the time of submission
By
by
25%.
25%.
Yeah.
That's impact. You worked on a team of 3. Rohan has this example. If you collaborated, maybe if you didn't lead the team, you led a team of 3, or you collaborated with 3, that's an accomplishment. If you were doing this towards the end of the semester, but aside from this project, you were working on 2 other papers, and then you had a field trip to attend to, but you still delivered the project on time, that's an accomplishment. But the hiring manager has no idea that all these extenuating circumstances showed up when you were doing the project. You see how this is all connected?
Yeah, and Bonita, just going back to the point when you said just your last statement. So let's say there are 4 people in a group, and like I am one of them.
Mhm.
And in your resume you write you're part of the group, but in reality you're the second most important person in the group.
Okay.
So how do you convey that without it being an information overload in the resume? Like,
Sure,
is it
give me more
important?
details. Give me more details. You were the second most important. Why were you the second most important?
Because in the let's say okay, yeah, in this point that says part of the team for ESG reporting to promote sustainable manufacturing process, there were 4 people in the team, including myself. So first person was my manager, and I was the assistant manager of finance, and I had 2 interns working under me. So it was a collaborative effort, but also there was a hierarchy in the group.
So outside of hierarchy, because hierarchy is, that's kind of like title saying I was assigned to be the assistant, but why did they make one of the interns take your position? There was something that you were doing. There was some function that you were fulfilling. That's why you're number 2.
Okay.
So that's what you want to highlight. It's not necessarily the title that you were number 2, but it's because of you. Let's just say I had this with a discussion with a student earlier. There were just 2 students collaborating on a project. Okay. I could say I collaborated with another person working on the project is one way to say it. But if there were 2 parts of the project wherein this person was responsible for part A and this person was responsible for part B, it could be said that you led the effort on part A for the completion of the project that was submitted 1 week ahead of schedule.
Okay. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Again, it's all about giving context to the hiring manager of why this is such a big deal. Very good question, Ryan.
Okay.
Rosemary, was there a follow-up?
No, I'm good right now.
So, Rohan, since you're online, can you go to the LinkedIn group for a second? And then I want you to go to hashtag resume.
Oh yeah, I have that opened in another window.
Perfect. So, hey, you learning anything? Awesome. I heard Kajal. Who else haven't I checked in with? Everybody's pretty much engaged. I want this to be about you, okay? So make sure I answer your questions. Under hashtag resume, thank you, Rohan. Please, you see that part where it says describing versus accomplishments and results? I want you to click the bottom where it says career log, actually.
Oh, sorry.
Career log accomplishments. It's also bolded. And Rosemary,
Okay.
to your point of a framework, the check marks that you see in this is what you're looking for your bullets. Schedule progress made, on-time delivery, improved feedback from the professor or from your classmates, papers published. So this list is meant to jog your memory
Okay.
as to the impact of your bullets. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, it did a lot.
Awesome.
I have a quick
Other
question.
questions?
Yeah, sometimes in these projects, but if you don't, you have made an impact for sure, but you're not sure how much impact you've made in terms of, you can quantify the impact.
Yeah.
or-
I know what you mean, right? Because if you're turning some papers in, you don't know that it's 25%. And number two, you can't lie, because if you put it on your resume, be ready to answer questions about it during the interview.
Mhm.
So the best way to do that is, let me give you an example. So a student came by and they built a drone, and his reasoning of the impact was, I built a drone because it makes the delivery process much, much faster. And then it's more convenient because the drone just flies over the city and you don't have to do that. And I said, well, that's the impact of the idea. That's not necessarily your accomplishment. Right?
Okay.
So you'd have to think of it from the perspective, and this is where it gets difficult. That's why I guess people don't do this a lot, because it's not easy to do it. If there's none, there's none. And that's where you come to career services. We get to quiz you, just like I'm talking to Rohan right now. Hey, what about this? What about that? It's another person looking at the way you're thinking. But the reason I encourage you guys to network amongst yourselves earlier, now that you have the same information, you could be the same for each other. Hey, can you take a look at this? What angle do you think I can take for that? The same information that career services can give to you. The reason I bring this up to you guys is so that you're learning the material and you have much, much more resources available to you when you're having difficulty. So to your point, Sadatu, that would probably be something you and I would discuss in a resume.
Okay.
But obviously, if you do more of the brain work first before you come to the interview, our conversation gets to be much, much more efficient, and the output is of a much higher level.
Okay.
Quality. Did that kinda answer your question?
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes there is none because you can't quantify it. And to your point, there's no way to know it. I have students who are saying, yeah, I entered at this company, but that information is confidential. I
Yeah.
can't give it out. So there are certain cases like that. And that's where the brainstorming comes into play. But when that's the case, what I would suggest for you guys is go back to the job description, see how important that is, and then highlight that. Maybe that wasn't even important according to the job description.
Okay.
So you notice how I'm always going back to the job description. And if it's not relevant, it's a very easy task actually to see what should be and what shouldn't be on the resume. The question is this relevant to the hiring manager, or is it a good to have piece of information? If it's the latter, gone. Because guess what? They're very busy. They don't have time to read extra stuff, quote unquote. All right, you can close to this screen, Rohan. You can go back to your resume with other questions. We can dive into it, or we can go to the next resume? I leave it up to you guys to decide. This is your call.
Yeah, I think we can see another resume because we only have like half an hour left, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, we do have. Who wants to volunteer? Kajol, I know we worked on your resume for a bit. Did you get into like one of the specifics where you probably wanted more clarity?
Yes, Bernie. So like some of the projects some of the projects I need to quantify the experience. So
Okay.
I'm working on it.
So do you want to go through the process for the benefit of the other people on the call? I'm going to do the process and say, okay, Kajol, tell me about this project, not necessarily worried about the words that you did, how you phrase it, but I really just want a dump of what happened to the project. And then Bernie and the rest of the team will be listening from what did Kajol accomplish. Do you think that would be a good exercise for you for this call?
Sure, Bernie. Like if no one else wants to share, I can go ahead.
Sadatu, Sohaib? No? Otherwise, Kajol's going. Rosemary? Yeah. Sohaib saying yes.
Okay.
Yeah, she can go ahead.
Awesome.
Okay, I'll share my screen.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing, Kajol. So we're going to a specific project, right, that we're talking about. And to Rosemary's point and Sadatu's point, Kajol is having difficulty quantifying what was accomplished. So what I want the team to do, Kajol, you're not sharing if you're trying. All right, there you go. I think it was just slow. Before we go there, that was actually a good size, Kajol. Go back to the, and then you may need to scroll down slowly. Whatever magnifying factor you had was good earlier. And then I want general impressions from the team, taking a first look at Kajol's resume. Feel free to jump in. Kajol, please slowly scroll down so people get to see your work so far. And then I want some reactions from you guys and see if you're catching some of the stuff that we're talking about so far.
I think for me, the first thing I see, in as much as we need a lot of information, it's like a lot of information packed without good spacing.
Without good spacing, okay? Any other comments?
I think the words in bold really highlight the keywords, so you can just skip through. I think the hiring manager can just skip through the sentence and just read the words that the company is looking for, read the skills the company is looking for.
Okay, that's assuming the person was HR, right? What if they were a hiring manager? What do you think the hiring manager would be looking for in relation to the keywords? Do you guys understand my question?
No, can you repeat your question, Bernie?
So Rohan said he likes that some words are bolded so that whoever is reading, it pops out to the person who's reading. And I commented, yes, that's good if the person was HR, because they're not necessarily technical. This is obviously a technical resume. So I shifted the question to say, now it's the technical manager's turn to read the resume. And I said, what would the technical manager be looking for in relation to those keywords?
On top of the keywords, they would assume or try to look for results immediately after. Try to see
Exactly.
what was achieved because of said keyword.
Yes. What I'm trying to bring out, guys, is sometimes you have all these apps where you could just put in the job description, or you could use ChatGPT and say for software engineer job, what would be the typical words, keywords that they're looking for. And then some students do the exercise of going through the app, picking the keywords, and then just sprinkle it in the resume, hoping that that would do it. Yes, you achieve getting through the front gatekeepers, the applicant tracking system, or even possibly HR. But what I'm trying to say is you are not fooling the hiring manager who is looking for actual application of those keywords. Do you guys get the distinction that I'm trying to bring about? When I hear students just talk
Okay.
about keywords in a vacuum, I like to bring the point that the keywords had better be relevant to your contribution as far as those keywords are concerned to the job descriptions point.
Okay.
Questions? It's not just about having those words there, but truly demonstrating that you have ability. That's why they're keywords, because they're looking for the actual experience, not just the words showing up. Do you guys get that nuance?
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, Cajoles. We're getting some good talking points here. Were there any other comments? Otherwise, I'm going to let Cajole take over with the part that you wanted to talk about.
Bernie, I have a question just before Kajol can start.
Yes,
So obviously this is a very technical resume.
yes.
At what point does a technical resume become an information overload? At what point does it say like, okay, this is too much of the information? Let's say the job description says, oh, you need to know A, B, and C, but your resume says that you know A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So how much of it do you really need to put in? I mean, it clearly shows that you know a lot of things, including what's really needed for the job. But
Mhm.
should we really utilize the real estate we have on this page to showcase the D, E, F, G, or should we just stick to A, B, C and say, this is what you were looking for, so this is what I know, that I'm telling you that I know these things.
Very good question, because it brings it back to the underlying principles that we spoke about earlier, right?
Yeah.
Does the manager have a lot of time or little time? We already established that everybody's busy. And then I always defer to somebody made a wish list of what they wanted. And then I mentioned it earlier in another point. Is this information relevant to the job description that you're looking at, or is it good to have? Which category did that fall into, Rohan, with your description? It's in the good to have category.
Yeah, I think it's like if you I think if you give out more information than what the job is looking for, then it's good to have, I guess.
Well, it's good to have, but again, they're a busy hiring manager. Do you really want to waste their time? Because if you truly wanted to give that information, once you get the call for an interview, then you can give those details.
Okay. All right.
Make sense? So
Yeah,
the
makes-
underlying principle, busy hiring manager, tie into the job description. Is it relevant or good to have? Is it good to have? Yes, gone.
It has to be relevant.
Yes, well, we established that. That's why I started with those
Yeah.
underlying principles. The
Yeah.
problem with us in STEM is we are trained in the classroom to be all about accuracy, all about completeness, all about, comprehensive information. That's not what job search is all about. It's about the busy hiring manager who's trying to fulfill a need. And if you give them more than they have, let's talk about human psychology for a second, to the points that have been brought up for Kajol's resume. From the human psychology standpoint, what's better? Is it a piece of paper that's packed with information? Which is better and more inviting for you to read as a human being? A piece of paper that's packed with information, or a piece of paper that has more white space and is kind of like appealing to the eye?
More
Appealing
white
to the eye.
space.
More white space and appealing to the eye. So let me tie that into Rohan's question, in that sometimes some of this information is, yes, we want to show that we're very technical, but yes, we got it, but that's not necessarily what I'm looking for right now.
Okay.
So you want to make the job easier, because your job at this point is not to let them know how much information you have, but to let them know that you're fitting the job description that they put up. Once you get the interview, then you can give them all the details that you want.
Okay.
Very good questions. Very good discussion, actually. Kajol, any reactions to the conversation that we've had so far with the comments? Thank you for sharing this, because it's bringing up some very good points in this discussion.
Yeah, I do agree that there is a lot of description in my resume. I can work on it, and I can remove some extra information and increase white space. So yeah.
Very
So
good, very
again,
good.
Hey,
So again,
Benny,
Bernie, coming back
sure.
to the white space part. So in my resume, there's a lot of white space compared to this. But again, if if you reduce your margins in the document, you get more space to write about yourself. So at what point does it not have to be, like not have to have any narrow margins to
Okay.
include all the data you need?
I like where you're coming from, Rohan. It's always about at what point. Guess what the answer always is?
It's relevant.
Relevant and depends on who's reading it. Are you
Okay.
thinking from the perspective of who's reading it? When you increase the white space, you're thinking that you could cram the information. But think about the busy hiring manager. Notice how I'm not just calling them hiring manager, right? I keep on bringing in, they're busy hiring manager. And you want them to read your document and you want them to call you in for an interview. So most of the questions that you're asking, Rohan, whenever you have questions like that, you put in your thinking cap. If I were a hiring manager, ...
Okay. So
That's always a good guideline.
okay, yeah. Okay.
Rosemary, you had a question.
Yes, Benny. My question is in terms of, what we're just talking about in terms of relevant and also in terms of what you should include in the resume. What about, we know ATS is used most
Yes.
with most companies in terms of just kind of like sieving the first
Yes.
interviews that would come in. So I
Yes.
think my question is now, because I understand where Kuja is coming from and also where I would come from. And also I think most, I don't want to speak for everyone, but we come from a place where you kind of like don't know, we're not quite sure in terms of what the specific relevant. I know the job description would guide you, but you're trying to make sure that you've covered your bases in the sense of, okay, if they're looking, for example, if I'm seeing Python, R here, if I'm looking in terms of visualization, for example, here, if you've covered your bases in the sense of you have your CV where if they're capturing that and if they're using that tool, you're good to go. So I'm just wondering, what's the balance? How do you create that balance in the sense of now you make sure that, okay, I know I'm kind of like answering myself to some extent in the sense of the relevant.
That's very good. That's very good.
But I want to be very in terms of clear,
yes,
relevant. Would you kind of like explain a baseline that you would use in terms of going forward, how relevant this is, how it would look like?
Actually, yeah, you answered the question earlier. The guide is really the job description. And that in tandem with, if I were the hiring manager who put this job description together, is what I'm about to write relevant? That's really the ultimate guide.
So if for example, the job description would have maybe say give or take 8 or 7 bullets. So you kind of like use that as a framework in the sense you say this 7 would be very relevant to this job. So I should have that, the relevant, just something that will go in line in tandem of what.
Well, I'm glad you bring this up because you can't
Okay.
lie either, right? If there's like
Yeah.
7 bullets and you only fulfill 4, then focus on the 4.
Okay.
And talk about your results on those 4, because you can't
Yeah.
make something up that did not exist. Because
Okay.
if you do, guess who's going to
Okay.
answer the question when they bring it
Okay.
up during the interview?
Sure, if you put it like that. So can we push it and say, can you guys fan say, okay, at least have that? Like your resume should reflect that. Can you say that?
What do you mean?
Reflect in the sense of you said you have, if you have the, for example, the example I've given, you have the 7 in the job description, you have 4, but to your resume, I'm saying your resume should at least reflect in the sense of what has been described in the, not necessarily.
I would reflect the 4 and
Okay.
talk about that because I can't make
Okay.
up 5, 6, and 7.
Sure. Very true.
So it's not an exercise of trying to fulfill all the requirements. Sometimes you get a gut feel that this is the wrong job to apply to because you don't. But there's also the train of thought that people think that they have to have all their ducks in a row before they apply.
Okay.
So what I'm
sorry.
trying to say is it's a
Mhm.
balance, I guess, to your point, that
Yeah.
sometimes I only fulfill 3, but I really feel strongly about it. I'm going to turn it in anyway. And then maybe I
Okay.
could make it up in my cover letter and cover my accomplishments in points 1, 2, 3, because I know number 1 is top of their priority as well.
Okay.
So I'm just going to highlight number 1 and talk about my results in number 1, even though I didn't fear there are 4. I'm making a hypothetical example,
Sure. Sure. Okay.
but it's your job search.
Yeah.
It's your call.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right.
Other questions? I think we're doing pretty good. And I love that you're doing self-realization. Oh no, my clock was ahead. We still have over 10 minutes, right? We didn't let Kajol get to the project that she wanted to talk about, but she kindly shared with us the resume that gave us a lot of discussion points. So thank you, Kajol. Did you want to get to your bullet so we can at least start talking about it? You can magnify it to the bullet you wanted to focus on.
So, like
The very
these
first one.
projects, yeah.
2 projects. Let's focus on the first one. Let's talk about multi-collection style transfer. Okay, so I'm just going to go with the title right now. Multi-collection style transfer using GAN, GAN. Is that a keyword that you're trying to get in there? GAN, or is it a nice to have?
It's no, it's not a keyword. It's a model type which was used in this project.
Yes, so the
It's
question to you
actually a
is,
keyword. Yeah.
okay, so we need to keep it there. So multi-collection style transfer, which are those is important?
Style transfer.
Okay, can I get rid of multi-collection?
No, okay, I'll open it in edit mode.
No, it's just question to you. We may not have time to have you edit. I want to
Yeah.
talk through this so that you're capturing the concepts that we're bringing out. So let me bring everybody up to speed. The way Kajol has it right now is it says multi-collection style transfer using GAN. So I asked her, at this required? She said, yes, that's a keyword. That's talking something technical. I would change the word using to style transfer with. With is 4 letters versus 5. I get to be a ninja when it comes to character count. I mean, that's the mindset that you need for a resume, because remember, who's reading this? It's a busy hiring manager. Make sense so far? That was just the title.
Yeah.
Questions about that discussion?
So I have a question. So are these projects college projects, or are these the ones which you worked on at like at your full-time job?
Yes. So out of these 5 projects, some of them are academic and some that I worked on, like my own projects.
I'm wondering where Rohan's going with that question.
Yeah. So so how do you Bunny, how do you classify the 2 types? Like one as a personal project and one as an office project? Because
Okay, question to you, Rohan. Busy hiring manager. Do they care where the experience came from?
no.
My work projects are in my work experience. And these are like my personal projects and my academic projects.
Okay, but I think we answered Rohan's question because he was going, again, his highly analytical mind went with which part does this go, this or that? And I said, the busy hiring manager, do they care? The answer is no, then don't worry about it, right?
Okay.
What you need to worry about is what in that project is what they're looking for in the job description, and then highlight that part, call out those results. I'm loving this whole exercise because the way you think is showing up, and I get to address it right here. Hopefully you're learning from it. That's the whole exercise of having these calls. Good reaction, Rohan. So Kajol, can we get into the first bullet?
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts?
Like there's one more thing, like this GAN GAN, the
Mhm.
full form of it is this generative adversarial networks.
Mhm.
So like uh is it good to use short forms like in uh in your resume, or you should mention the full form of it? Like if not, I could remove this and just mention.
It's a very good question. So if this were a keyword that were in the job description and it shows up as GAN, then you want GAN. By the same token, we were talking about a busy hiring manager. If this is going to be read by HR, it's one thing. Is it going to be read by a technical manager? It's another thing. So at some point, you have to make a call between white space. There's a lot of moving parts going on here. And I love that it's a good question that you're having. At some point, you have to make a call as to whether the acronym is going to be good enough, or do I really need to spell it out?
Okay.
Does that
Got
give
it.
you guidance?
Yeah, like if it's an HR, they might not know what this keyword stands for, but maybe
Yes.
the hiring manager would know.
And the challenge is you're trying to design this for both people.
Yeah.
That's why I said at some point you have to decide. Good question.
Got it.
So you said device the deep learning model to transform real images by seamlessly transferring. Okay, where she goes by seamlessly transferring multiple artistic styles using generative. Do they need to know how you did it?
Okay, yeah, I can remove these extra words and just like
Well,
mention.
they're not extra words. You're talking about how you did it. That's still important, but I'm saying for the purpose of the resume, whose purpose is to get you an interview, do they need to know the method that you did it? And it sounds to me like you're saying, no, that's kind of extra right now. It doesn't, here's another way to put it. The results that you have, what is necessary to frame the results so that the reader gets it? I repeat, when you're deciding which phrases to keep, go to the results that you're going to call out and do these extra words or phrases. Are they crucial in the reader getting context about the result or accomplishment that you are trying to frame? Did that come through?
Yeah, so yeah, in this case, the end result is like I've transferred multiple artistic styles. So yeah, like maybe
Sorry, what's the accomplishment for this project again?
uh, like multiple artistic styles were reflected on a real image. So
Okay,
that
good. When you say multiple, how many?
around 4.
Okay, just say pick 3 or 4. Don't say around. Around is an extra word.
Like the model was like I could give more than 4 or less than 4, any number, but I used it for 4 styles.
Okay, so I would call out transferring 4 artistic. Don't forget, take out multiple. Be very
Okay.
specific. So you're saying the accomplishment was you transferred 4 artistic styles. So what's the big deal about the 4 artistic styles?
uh like I used 4 painters style, like the actual paintings, and then the real images, that the normal images that we like photos or something that we click. So it's a computer vision project.
Mhm.
So like kind of you can say a creative project.
Okay, cool. Actually, I'm going to go back to your starting word. You said you device. Did you have to do some research?
Yes.
Did you have to design?
Yes, it was
Did you have to
inspired by.
test?
Yes.
Did you have to implement?
Yes.
Okay, those are 4 different tasks that you kind of like lumped into device.
Mhm. Okay, so like in this case, what do you suggest?
Research, designed, tested, and implemented deep learning model that transformed images with 4 multiple styles.
Okay.
Are you getting the gist of where I'm going? I just captured, the ideas that were really important. Did you do this in a particular time frame?
Yes. In
How long?
in 3 months.
Was 3 months the target?
Yes.
Okay, so you delivered the project on hand, right? On time.
Yes.
Any other situations? This was a class project?
Yes.
What was your final grade? Was it A? If it were A, I would call out grade A. That's an accomplishment.
No, it was B.
Okay, no, but you understand, I guess the reason I bring up these things is where, like, what else kind of impact can I share to make them know that this was a big deal?
Got it. Yeah. Okay.
I think
I'll
on that, I'll let you, I just wanted to warn everybody that we're on the hour mark. So go ahead with what you have to say, Kajal.
Yeah, I'll definitely work on these things that you mentioned, and
Mhm.
I'll try to improve the bullet points. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
cool.
you, Arnie.
Really quick before you go, can you please stop sharing the screen? I want to share something really quick. Coley, I didn't see Coley earlier. Thank you for joining us. Since I haven't heard from you, Coley, did you have any questions that we haven't addressed so far? I hope this was helpful. While we're waiting for Coley to find his mic button, I am going to share. Let's see. I'm going to share. So let me give you an example of a student back and forth. Notice how instead of completing the entire resume and then sending it in for checking, notice how we pick portions of the word, like today. Kajal talked about that one project. So when you ask for improvements on the way that you worded it, you could send something like this to me, and then I make comments on it. And we get more efficient because instead of like reading the entire document and waiting until you complete it, I get to give you comments little by little, but I want you to have a final version of the actual resume so that you're seeing what it's going to be, the final product. Yeah, no worries, Colleen. Thank you for saying that. We're going to send you a copy of the recording, but I don't think you were on the invite. So make sure to send me a message on LinkedIn or email to let me know that I need to send this to you. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for, sounds like you will be listening to the recording. Before I end this session, I want to hear final questions from folks.
So Bernie, how do we keep a track of the new meetings like these? Because obviously the career set, the LinkedIn group has a lot of content in it. So how do we really know?
How do you keep track of it?
Yeah.
It's posted in the LinkedIn group. The regular programming for career services is over. The reason we started these calls is when I start getting calls about resume, I'm like, yep, time to do a resume again. So now that I know that you're part of it, Rohan, you might probably get an invite to the next one. But the easiest answer to your question is it's really in the LinkedIn group. To your point about seeing a lot of stuff, that's part of why we want you to be checking into the LinkedIn group. Because that's really where the latest information is. It's ear to the ground, so to speak, of what's going on. I apologize, I don't have a better answer for you. If this were regular programming, you'd see it all over Handshake. Nick takes care of all of that, but right now it's just going by the need. So if you guys are up to it, we can schedule another one, same time, same channel next Thursday. Would you guys be interested? Send me a message if you are. We will keep that moving forward. Thank you, Rohan. Other questions? This has been quite an engaged group. We appreciate your time. In the actual recording that's going to be sent over via YouTube, I create notes so that you could go to the specific section that you probably want to get to. So FYI, there's going to be a notes tab so that you can go directly to the part of this call that you're possibly looking for. Okay, guys?
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining today, and stay tuned for next Thursday, same time, same bat channel. And I appreciate your attention.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you,
guys.
Bonnie. Bye.